Growing up in Philadelphia, Jill Scott was raised by her mother and grandmother in a home rooted in strength, love, and resilience. Her upbringing was deeply influenced by the women around her. Women who worked hard, who nurtured, and who instilled values that would later shape her voice and her artistry. From an early age, Jill was surrounded by culture, community, and expression. And that environment played a major role in how she saw the world. She attended Philadelphia High School for Girls, where she began to develop her love for language and storytelling. Even then, it wasn't just about music. It was about expression. Before stepping into music, Jill explored different paths, including studying education at Temple University. She wanted to become a teacher, but life had other plans. Her early creative outlook came through poetry. Jill began performing spoken word at a local venues in Philadelphia, where her ability to tell stories, paint pictures with words, and connect emotionally with audience quickly stood out. It was in these spaces that she found her voice, not just as a singer, but as a storyteller. One of the most pivotal moments in her early career came when she collaborated with The Roots, contributing to the written of You Got Me, a Grammy-winning track that helped bring her talent into a wider spotlight. From there, everything began to shift, but her foundation remained the same, rooted in poetry, rooted in truth, rooted in Philadelphia. There was something about the way Jill Scott expressed herself. It wasn't just poetry, it was a feeling. It was truth, it was lived experiences. And that truth didn't go unnoticed. Her words, her presence, and her storytelling began to reach beyond small rooms and open mic stages, leading her into a space where poetry and music would collide. Her collaborations with The Roots opened the door, bringing her voice to a wider audience and marking the beginning of something bigger. And from that moment, Jill Scott wasn't just a poet anymore. She was becoming an artist. That journey would lead to the release of her debut album, Who is Jill Scott? Words and Sounds, Volume 1. An introduction that wasn't just heard, but felt. And with that introduction, Jill Scott stepped into the music in a way that felt completely her own. With Who is Jill Scott? Words and Sounds, Volume 1, she didn't just release an album. She introduced a feeling. This project wasn't built around trends or expectations. It was built on honesty, soul, and storytelling. From the very first listen, you can hear that this is something different. It is not rushed. absolutely not forced. It's intentional. Jill blends poetry and music effortlessly, creating songs that feel like conversations, moments, just real life. In tracks like A Long Walk, there's a warmth that draws you right in. It feels light, free, and full of joy. And then with He Loves Me, she delivers something deeper. A layered emotional performance that showcased not just her voice, but her ability to fill every note. This album gave us space for Black love. Black womanhood. And everyday experiences to be heard in a way that felt authentic and apologetic. It had this big impact. And in doing so, Jill carved out a place in a movement that would come to define an era. At a time when music was shifting, Jill Scott emerged a part of something deeper. She wasn't alone, but her voice stood out. Alongside artists like Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, and Lauryn Hill, Jill became part of a movement that would come to be known as neo-soul. A sound rooted in true to self, soul, live instruments, and real storytelling. This wasn't just music you listened to. It was music you felt. Jill Scott's presence in the space brought something unique. A balance of poetry, confidence, truth, vulnerability. She created space for stories that wasn't always highlighted. Love that felt real. An experience that felt familiar. Her music didn't try to fit into the industry because it created its own lane. And as her voice grew stronger, so did her impact. With the success of her debut album, there was now excitement. What would she say next? How would she evolve? And with that question, Jill Scott returned with a new chapter. One that will build on her foundation, but take her even deeper into her artistry. Beautifully Human Words and Sounds, Volume 2. With the foundation already set, Jill Scott returned with a deeper sense of purpose. Beautifully Human Words and Sound, Volume 2 wasn't just a continuation. It was an expansion. This project leaned over farther into emotion, storytelling, self-expression, while exploring the difficulties of life, love, identity, there's a maturity here, a confidence that comes from knowing who you are and being unafraid to express it. The album moves through different emotions, from joy to heartbreak to reflection. All while maintaining that signature warmth Jill Scott is known for. In songs like Golden, there's a sense of freedom and celebration. It feels uplifting, like choosing happiness, even in the middle of everything life brings. And then with Cross My Mind, she shifts into something more intimate. A reflection on love, memory, and the moments that stayed with you long after they passed. This album continues to highlight the beauty of everyday experiences, the kind that often goes unnoticed. But means everything. Jill Scott doesn't rush through those moments. She sits in them. And invites you to fill them with her. And through that honesty, Her connection with listeners only grew stronger. And through every phase of her journey, Jill Scott remained true to one thing: herself. From poetry to music to storytelling in every form, she created a space where being self could exist without compromise. Her voice was never just about sound. It was about feeling. About truth. About lived experiences. Jill Scott didn't just make music, she created moments. Moments that spoke to love, to growth, to healing. And to the beauty of simply being human. And in doing so, she became more than just an artist. She became a voice for those who felt deeply, loved deeply, and lived fully. Because in the end, this isn't just about music. It's about the stories, the emotions, and the legacies that she continued to build. And that is legacy. Still speaks.